guys, thank you very much for joining my channel. So today we'll be talking about coordinate geometry. In particular, we'll be talking about the circle. So this is living set coordinate geometry. So in this video we'll talk about the various examples or scenarios that they can ask about the circle. And in the next video we'll go into exam papers. We'll talk about tips and we'll answer some exam papers. So let's get started. So the agenda for this video is that we discuss the various scenarios about the circle. So first we'll talk about how to find the radius and the center if you're given the equation. Next we'll talk about how to find the equation if you're given the radius and the center. And then we'll talk about how you can produce drawing, how can you draw the circle if you're given the equation. And then next we'll talk about how you can produce the equation if you're given the drawing. And then we'll investigate if a point is on the circle, outside the circle, or inside the circle. And then we'll do lots of examples. So the first scenario is when you have to find the radius and the center if you're given the equation. So the equation of the circle reads x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So basically the center is given by h comma k and the radius is r. So you can see from this equation that if you want the center and you're given the equation, you take the value here and you change its sign to get the x coordinate of the center. And you do the same for the y coordinate. You take the value here, it's minus k, and then you change its sign to become k. So you get the center to get the radius. You take the value here, that's on the right hand side, so this is r squared. You get the square root of r squared, which is r, to get the radius. So let's illustrate that with an example. So let's say you're given the equation x plus 2 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 4, and the question is find the radius in the center of the following circle. So to do this, we go and we look for the center first. So the center is, you take the value in the first bracket, so the bracket with x, and you change the sign. So here it's plus 2, so it becomes minus 2. And then you do the same for the y coordinate. You take the value with the y, here it's plus 2, you change it to minus 2. So the center becomes minus 2, minus 2. And then for the radius, we can see that from here, from the general equation, the value on the right hand side is r squared. So this is r squared, and we want r, we want the radius. So we get the square root of r squared to get r. So the square root of 4. So if we do that, find the radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. So we do another example. So again, you're given the equation which reads x minus 3 squared plus y squared equals 25. So here we immediately notice that we only have one bracket. The y bracket, we don't have it, we just have y squared. So we realize that we can rewrite y squared as y plus 0 squared. So you can rewrite that as y plus 0 squared. You can rewrite the whole equation as x minus 3 squared plus y plus 0 squared equals 25. And then we can continue as we did before. To get the center, we get this value, we change its sign for the x coordinate. So this becomes 3 plus 3. And then for the y coordinate, 0 and minus 0 are the same, so it's just 0. And then for r, we realize that the value on the most right hand side is r squared, so this is r squared. So to get r, we get the square root of this 25. So if we do that, find the center is 3, 0, and then the radius is the square root of 25, which is 5. So the next scenario is when they give you the radius in the center and they want you to find the equation. So we'll do an example. So the example reads, find the equation of the circle with center 2, minus 3, and radius 26. So to do this, we get the general equation from our log tables, and then we sub in the values for h, for k, and for r. So the x and the y remain in the equation. All we have to do is find what is h, what is k, and what is r, and we sub them into this equation. So we write the general equation here. We have it there, and then the center is 2 minus 3 and then the radius is 26. So the h, we take this value and we change its sign, because remember that when we did it before, when we're taking values from here to get the center, we change its sign. So we do the same when we're going backwards, we change its sign. So we take the 2, we change it to -2, and then we take the -3, we change it to +3, and then the radius is 26. Remember, in the equation it's r squared, so here we're given r, so if we're putting it back into the equation, we square it, so r squared, 26 squared. The last step is just to tidy things up and find the actual value for 26 squared. So you just put that in your calculator, find that it's 676. Another scenario is when you have to draw the circle given the equation of the circle. So we illustrate this with an example. So the example is draw the circle with the equation x minus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 4. So first step, we have to find the center from the equation. So we did this before, so to get the center, we simply have to read these values. So we take the -2, we change its sign to +2, and then we take the +1, we change its sign to -1. So the center is 2, -1. So we put that in, put the dot there. So it's 2 in the x, so 1, 2, and then -1 in the y, -1. So there is the center. So the next, we get the radius. So the radius, we can read it from the equation. So remember, the right hand side is r squared. So this 4 is equal to r squared. So to get r, we get the square root of r squared, which is the square root of 4, which is 2. So the radius is 2. So if the radius is 2, radius means that if you go from the center and you go to one of the edges of the circle, it should be 2 units. So if you go from the center, we have to go 1, 2, so the circle should touch here. So if you go down, the circle should also touch 1, 2 here. The circle should also touch 1, 2 here, and the circle should also touch 1, 2 there. So we put those points, so the circle should touch there, 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 and there. 2 units each side. And then the last step is to draw the circle, connects those points. So the next scenario is when you're given the equation and then you have to produce the equation from the drawing. So it's the opposite of what we did. So find the equation of the drawn circle, and they give you the circle there. So first step, we get the center. So we read from the question. So the center is here. So we have 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So half of that is 2, 1, 2. So the center is here. And the same in here, we have 4 units, the center. So the center of the circle is here. So we find the coordinate of that. So it's -1, -2 in the x, and then in the y it's 0. So this is the y-axis. The y-axis goes 1, 2, 3, and so on, and then -1, -2, and so on. So this one is on the line, so that means the y is 0. It never goes up nor go down. So find the coordinate of the center. It's -2, 0. The next step is to find the radius. So the radius, you can read the units from the center to one of the edges. So 1, 2, or that edge 1, 2, or down or in the left. So 2 units. So that's the radius. So we have the center with the radius. So now we can actually write the equation of the circle by just subbing in those values into the general equation, which you find in the log tables. So let's do that. We sub the values in the equation. So the equation reads x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we take the center, we have -2, we sub it in for h, so it changes its sign, remember, so the -2 becomes 2, and then for k, the 0 remains 0, and then r, so our radius we found it's 2, but the general equation, they need r squared, so we're going to square that, so 2 squared. So the last step is just to tidy this up, so square the 2. So we get x plus 2 squared, and then y plus 0 is the same as y squared, as we've seen before, equals 4. So that will be the equation of the circle here. So another scenario is they'll give you a point and then they say find if the point is on the circle. So for example, investigate if the point Q23 is on the circle x minus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 4. So investigate if the point is on the circle. So to do this, we substitute the point. So we substitute the point Q into the equation of the given circle. So Q has x and y coordinates. So this is the x coordinate of Q, this is the y coordinate of Q. So what we do is we substitute the x and the y value of Q into the equation. So for x here, we sub in 2. And then for y here, we sub in 3. The other values, the -2 and the 1 and the 4, they remain there. So we're trying to investigate if the left-hand side would be equal to the right-hand side when we sub in 2 for x and 3 for y. So we do that, sub in those values. So we get 2 for x, so 2 minus 2 squared plus 3 for y, 3 plus 1 squared equals 4, and question mark, because we're investigating if the point is on the circle. So if the point is on the circle, these should be equal. This equation should be true. You should get 4 on this side because you have 4 on the right. So we calculate that, and then we see that on this side you actually get a value of 16. So you have 0 plus 16. So that's definitely not equal to 4. So we can conclude that the point is not on the circle. So another scenario is when you have to investigate if the point is on the circle, outside the circle, or inside the circle. So to do this, we'll do an example. So investigate if the point Q23 is on the circle, inside the circle, or outside the circle, and they give you the equation of the circle there. So to do that, we substitute Q into the equation as we did previously. So here is Q, here's the equation of the circle. So for x we put 2, and then for y we put 3. So every time when we see x we put 2, and when we see y we put 3. Everything else remains the same. So we do that, the question mark, because we're investigating, we're trying to find if this equation is true. So we find that the left hand side is 16, the right is 4. So definitely this is not, they are not equal. So we can conclude that the point is not on the circle. But so it means that the point is either inside or outside the circle. So to find which one is which, we know that if the left hand side is greater than the right hand side, which we have in this case, so 16 is greater than 4, the point is outside the circle. So we can conclude that. So that will be the answer to that question. So however, if the answer or the value on the left was less than 4, or in general, if the value on the left is less than the value on the right, you can conclude that the point is inside the circle. So for example, if you found a value, if the value here was 2, 2 is clearly less than 4, your conclusion would be the point is inside the circle. On the other hand, if you got a value of 4 equals 4, this equation will be true. So therefore the point is actually on the circle. So those are the 3 different scenarios: on the circle, inside, or outside. On the circle, this will be equal. Outside, this will be greater than this, and then inside this will be less than this. So the answer to this question is outside, because 16 is greater than 4. So just to visualize what the question meant, we draw the circle. Draw the circle here. So we don't need to do this in this question, but just to demonstrate what the question meant. So the equation of the circle is this. So we draw it like what we did before. So the center is at 2 minus 1, so 2 in the x minus 1 in the y, and then the radius is square root of 4, which is 2, so 2 either side. So we go 2, so we draw the circle, and then the point that we're investigating, if it's either inside the circle, so in here, on the circle, so on the blue line, or outside, out here somewhere. So 2, 3, so 2 is 1, 2 here, and then 3, 1, 2, 3. It's here, so that's where Q is. So we can clearly see that Q is outside the circle here. So therefore we're right by this. So by the way, this is another way to prove that the point is outside the circle, by visualizing. But however, this way is a bit longer because you have to draw the circle and you have to find this point and then see this. So, and sometimes maybe the point is very far away or something, so you might need extra space, but this way you can just sub in the values and you can clearly see, investigate if they are equal, greater than, or less than. So this one was outside. So thank you very much for watching. If you found this useful, please share with your friends who can also find the video useful. In our next video, we'll discuss exam papers, both higher level and ordinary level.